The silence between us. Sophie tossed and turned in bed for the third time that night. The digital clock on the nightstand read 2:17 a.m. And the only sound in the room was Daniel's rhythmic breathing, his back turned to her. They used to sleep intertwined, their bodies in sync, as if each other's touch was the most natural thing in the world. Now there was space between them, a space that wasn't just physical, but emotional. She turned to face him in the dark. The outline of his shoulders rose and fell gently, indifferent to the turmoil inside her. A knot formed in her throat. Does he still love me? That question followed her like a shadow. It was subtle, almost imperceptible. The messages that once came with passionate emojis were now short and to the point. His eyes seemed to wander when she spoke. The kisses were distracted, the touch distant. Sophie felt his absence even when they were in the same room. That morning, after yet another silent dinner, she picked up her phone and typed, "How do you know if he's losing interest?" Google bombarded her with cold, impersonal lists. Heavy checkmark, he takes a long time to reply to messages. Heavy checkmark, he doesn't make plans for the future. Heavy checkmark, he avoids physical contact. Each item on the list felt like a blow to the chest. Her face flushed, her eyes burned. But what if? I'm overreacting? Maybe it was just stress. Maybe he was going through something and didn't want to bother her. Maybe. Or maybe he had simply stopped feeling something for her. Fear whispered, what if he's interested in someone else? The thought made her stomach churn. She needed answers. But more than that, she needed a solution. Sophie spent the day watching videos on YouTube. How to make a man notice you again. Then, what to do when he acts indifferent. Some said to be more distant. Others to play hard to get. Some to be understanding and wait. But how could she wait when she felt her world crumbling? When Daniel came home that night, she watched him silently. Fatigue weighed on his shoulders. He dropped his bag on the floor, grabbed a beer, and threw himself on the couch. He picked up his phone and started scrolling, oblivious to her presence. Sophie felt a wave of frustration, of anger. She wanted to scream. She wanted to ask what had happened to them. But something inside her told her to wait. And then, she remembered something she had read earlier that day. Men don't connect the same way women do. For them, emotion isn't just about words. It's not about saying, I love you over and over. It's about how they feel when they're with you. Sophie took a deep breath. Instead of asking if he was okay, instead of forcing a conversation, she did something different. She sat beside him on the couch, saying nothing. Then, with the tips of her fingers, she gently touched his hand, not expecting him to respond. For a moment, nothing happened. But then Daniel looked at her. And for the first time in weeks, he really looked at her. That look, filled with something she thought she had lost. That night, Sophie didn't beg for answers. Instead, she began to understand something no one had ever taught her. Love doesn't die because we want it to. It fades when we forget how to make it shine. She didn't need games, manipulation, or cold rules. She needed to awaken in him what made him fall in love with her in the first place. And now she knew how to do that. For more information, click on the bio link.